Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
Today we're going to talk about, or we're going to sort of ponder the question of should the closest get the mostest? And what I mean by that is, who is the person who should inherit at the end? Should it be the person who is there at the end, or they're the most or most present, or somebody who has more of a sort of a lifelong relationship? Because we kind of just see this a lot, and it's something that's worth thinking about, especially if you're a solo ager and choosing who inherits from you is something that you need to start thinking about.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start with relatives. Which relative should inherit? Let's say it's you have family. You can be a solo ager and still have nieces and nephews and such, or siblings. Who should inherit? Should it be that lifelong favorite niece and nephew who you've went to ball games with, or with, or just always had a good relationship with? Or alternatively, maybe somebody who you didn't have a lifelong or such a long connection with, still blood, still relative, but it's the one who was there at the end when things got tough, right? When you needed help with things, maybe very, very personal, medical, or even hygiene things.
Yep.
I mean, that can create some like instant intimacy, or not intimacy, but
I mean, the person that steps up, you've definitely made a different connection with, right, at the end.
And we don't have the answers here. I'm just pointing out that we see both. We kind of hear both sides of the story. We at the because we deal with the states after somebody has passed on, and we hear from the quote unquote favorite niece or nephew who says, this is my aunt who I've been close with for 50, 40 years.
Right.
And then all of a sudden everything goes to Johnny come lately cousin. But then the other point of view is Johnny come lately cousin, who maybe never had a great relationship with the aunt, is the one who really, really stepped up at the end.
Right.
And again, neither of us, or I don't think anybody, knows what's the correct answer, who should inherit. But again, just pointing out for anyone listening who might be the favorite niece, or who might be Johnny come
at the end,
come recently.
Johnny come help at the very last minute. Yes.
No, but we don't know what the right answer is, but there's basically both points of view, right?
Yep.
All right. Another scenario, sort of similar, but can a caregiver inherit? And this is super similar, but instead of cousin Johnny, we're talking about a hired home aide or nurse. Sometimes even the doctor. It can be a lot of scenarios. So often, wow, I'm going to use a very like old school term. Often the hired help do get something.
Yeah.
And actually, we have seen it in kind of that old school way where we have seen butlers and live-in cooks either inherit or not inherit.
Right.
It's really hard to tell. Sometimes you underestimate, or let's say the family underestimates how close somebody was with a solo ager was with their butler, maid, or cook, or homemaid, right? And then on the other side, sometimes the homemaid overestimates his or her place and expects a large inheritance that was never coming.
Right. There's two sides to that story, right? Like you said, that they may be the ones that are taking care of them at the end. You don't think that they're just the maid or butler or cook or something, but they're there doing all that last minute stuff that you talked about. And
one thing to caution you about, if you're a homemaid or the cousin who's coming in at the end. That is a scenario where the courts might actually look at whether or not you exerted undue influence on the solo ager, on the person who made the will. And what that means is, if somebody is so reliant on a homemaid, let's say, for like day-to-day care, and they have legitimate, or they have reason to fear that day-to-day care will be withheld if they don't sign a will, giving something to that homemaid, and this is just one scenario, by the way, then the will might get thrown out. It might be deemed invalid by a court. So that's just one type of undue influence, but it's a common one, and that might be out there. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, last scenario of should the closest get the mostest. So how about leaving money to a church in your will. And when I say church, I'm using that as a placeholder for almost, any religious organization or community, even community organization. But the point is, for a lot of solo agers, the church or religion or temple, whatever, does provide a lot of comfort and community towards the end of life, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially if you don't have family nearby, or if you're just not close, or if you lived a long, great life and you've kind of outlived many of your relatives, siblings, or friends, then your church and your religious organization is kind of your family at that point, right?
Absolutely.
And another element to this is your church might be who you're counting on to give you a proper burial and a memorial. Like, who else will do it, and who else will bring the community together to have a good send off for you after your passing. So that's a scenario where you'll see these churches or other religious organizations get something at the end, and the family might not get it. The surviving family, the nieces and nephews who are scattered across the country, might be like, "Hey, man, why is so much money going to this?" But that's who was there in a different way. Yeah.
Right. It's up to the person who's leaving the money, right? We don't really know what occurred inside, like you said, who's helping at the last little bit there. Would you, in all of this, sounds like you should have a solid estate plan. Even if you change it towards the end, it's not something you probably want to do written on a napkin, right? It happens, but it would be something that you would want to consult your attorney and do it correctly, and then you won't have a lot of those question marks, right?
Yeah, and for solo agers, we talk about getting it done, getting at least one version done now when you're like unquestionably of sound mind and healthy and vigorous, and sort of start a paper trail so that you even when this gentleman was super unquestionably healthy, this is roughly what his estate plan was, and the later changes were tweaks. So we have an audit trail here, as it were.
Absolutely. Yep. You could say these were his wishes from a long time ago, just some minor changes in the end with the person who helped. Yeah. Definitely there's a link in the comments for a free copy of Anthony's book, The Solo Ager Estate Plan. That will help you plan for some of what we're talking about.
Perfect. All right. Hope this covered some ground that comes up for you. Thank you, Janice, as always. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Take care.
Talk soon.